slaves and hit those buttons, or I'll send ICE.
I walked into prison, still a boy of 120 pounds.
When I walked out, I was healthy and mindful.
Know thyself. Heal thyself.
See, it's not just the physical, but the mental health too. You can get help before prison. Call 988 for help today and be blessed.
Hold up, grab my soda, cause I told you I'm colder than hell. I ain't buying what you sell, it don't ring my bell. Unless it's got the smell, you know, like grape pape. We ain't talking vapes or the color of drapes. Or a gorilla in a cape, it's the good shit. Just one hit, you so lit, you fall into a bit, non-bit. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie, obliteration of the carnation with gross castration, skewed citations by your intimations. Get real, young man, there's only one stand. You can't stand a suntan, how you gonna live on the land? Obliteration of the carnation with gross castration in skewed citations by your intimations. I'm a truth in rotation, you're a cheap imitation. Dark said hums, 808s make the ground shake. Cold as the grave, every word's a land quake. You're a flicker in a cipher, I'm the flame that won't fade. Step into the night where the shadows are made. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie. I'm gonna click another hit of this good shit, and I'm already it, so take over this bit, non-bit.
Thank you for joining us at Personality Inventory Mockumentary Productions.
Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe. There's a PayPal link down in the details section for anybody that wants to share some love. Always appreciated. And we're going to be talking tonight about some more of that stuff people call corruption that is actually criminal. But I have to take a quick, brief moment. Be right back. Okay, my apologies for that, folks. But let's get the ball rolling again. We're talking about the cognitive dissonance that has people so consumed that they're denying what's right before their eyes. And this is your own accountability in all of this, putting these people in charge and believing that they have authority over you. And I wonder, in this Christian society, if a man is bound by his words, then why are the people seemingly so dependent upon the words of another man to support their supposed ideologies? That's the problem I see. It's a problem I've seen for a long time. So let's get into the accountability aspect as it relates to the NOPD, the New Orleans Police Department. We've had them on in a couple of these streams here lately. with massive federal oversight, and many officers being put on a list. I think there was 22 or 24, something like that, to start out with, and they ended up with 20 of them being prosecuted. I don't know what the results of that are yet. I believe it's still ongoing. But in the meantime, we have also discussed the budget that these officers have, many of them getting overtime that is just completely outrageous. And now we have one where the NOPD chief changes suspension protocol following a Fox 8 investigation. So let's take a look at this. And you should be able to recognize the gal, the chief of police.
Taking update to a Fox 8 investigation, New Orleans Police Chief Ann Kirkpatrick says she'll immediately change how she handles officers accused of egregious violations. As Rob Krieger explains, the change comes after our investigation raised questions about an officer who smoked meth on duty.
10 hours into his 12-hour overnight.
An officer that smoked meth on duty. And this is the only profession that I know of where when you smoke meth on duty, and when I talk profession, I'm talking about specific public service branches of the government, such as policing and Social Security and other political offices as well. The oversight doesn't seem to have any effect. The accountability doesn't seem to be there. So let's let this play out and see what happens in this case where an officer actually videos himself on his own body cam. And then because of records inspection, specifically body cams, reviewing hundreds and hundreds of hours of body cams, they came across this footage. And if it had not been for that, even the accountability that they do pose wouldn't be there.
Shift. Officer Maurice Bailey begins driving down Highway 11 in his NOPD unit. As power poles flash by, he lights up a meth pipe while his body...
Yes, folks. That's a meth pipe, and that's one of those jet lighters to heat up the bottom so that it boils and smokes off, and he can suck it through the tube here. All right? Meth pipe. This is his patrol cruiser.
Camera records.
He recorded the whole event, from buying the lighter to, sort of revealing the meth in the packaging, and then smoking meth on his own body camera.
Skip Gallagher is a forensic scientist and NOPD watchdog who's reviewed multiple Public Integrity Bureau investigations into Bailey, including this one triggered in 2023 during a random review of body-worn.
Again, not a one-off incident. It's multiple. And you wouldn't be surprised to know, or you might, but you wouldn't be surprised to know, I wouldn't think, that it's not the last. Coincidentally.
Camera video.
It's sort of impressive that anyone found that video, because there are hundreds of hours being turned in body camera video, and it was discovered.
Fox 8 obtained the 30-minute clip from Bailey's body-worn camera on December 5th, 2023. Documents show nearly 5 months after confiscating his weapon and pulling Bailey off the street, the NOPD's top brass agreed with Public Integrity Bureau findings that recommended no tactical, policy, or education and training recommendations were needed by the officer. That's despite Bailey's positive drug test, his confession to smoking meth on duty, and his admission that he'd been getting high on the clock for months.
That officer should have been on suspension and terminated rather quickly.
Absolutely. Congratulations. Gregor One Love says, I did that for 14 years and quit 4 years ago. Good job. Good job.
But within weeks of the conclusion of the investigation in April of 2024, Bailey was back on the clock, reassigned to desk duty, earning thousands of dollars as an NOPD officer. The Civil Service Department in New Orleans tells Fox 8 its rules allow for emergency suspensions, which could have kept Bailey from returning to desk duty. The Civil Service Commission says it had no involvement in Bailey's case. During an interview with NOPD Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick Thursday,
civil service rules are to be applied, but the Civil Service Department had nothing to do with the case. That's part of the problem. They should. If you expect the civil service rules to be applied and followed, then it most certainly would require the civil service department. The fuck?
She told us she believed an emergency suspension included full pay, so she allowed Bailey to return to the office in an administrative role pending a final disciplinary hearing.
I'm not going to let you go home for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months during an investigation and go to the gym all day, take a nap here and there. We're going to work you. It's just that
we're going to work you. Does that sound reasonable? Again, this is one of those accountability things that if it was me and I was working for, say, even a security firm, I'd be fired. I'd be fired and they'd do their investigation. And if they found themselves in the wrong in firing me, then they'd be held accountable, right? Funny how that works. That's ironic. Let me show you. I love irony. I love irony so much so that I even have a perfect shirt to express it. Hyphenated, non-hyphenated. The irony is that hyphenated doesn't use a hyphen and non-hyphenated uses a hyphen. Interesting, huh? Maybe look at things a little bit different from now on. Just saying.
your police powers have been taken away from you.
Even potentially if you're going to come back on your clock and smoke meth.
I'd rather not pay you sitting at home and get nothing out of you. And so that is my decision.
Only weeks after Bailey was back on the clock, Kirkpatrick says doing things like taking police reports over the phone, documents show he skips work. The NOPD gives him a letter of reprimand, and then at the end of May, he's drug tested again. Results show another positive test for meth.
Oops. So when we see meth, is it a one-off or is it a pattern of practice, guys? And yet, even though I would assume that the police would agree with that as well, I mean, they have records of it. Same with the courts and the DAs and the attorneys and everybody, all the defense attorneys. Oh, yeah, it's a pattern of practice. They come back through again and again. They have an addiction. They have a hard time giving it up. Let's keep him on behind the desk, keeping track of those records, huh? Fucking irony.
Bailey admits he relapsed and ultimately resigns under investigation, ending the internal inquiry more than 6 months after he was caught smoking meth.
So rather than being charged with a meth charge, he resigns and that goes away. What happens there?
On administrative leave, Bailey was paid nearly $13,000, including sick pay, leave, and a $5,000 retention bonus.
So $12,997.08, almost $13 or $13,000, and $5,000 of it came from a retention pay. Huh? What? The fuck is this fucking shit?
Paid by the city.
I wish I could just say, get your gun, your book, your hat, leave, but it's not possible. I must do due process. So I choose to work you rather than pay you full salary and have you sit at home.
However,
so you know, that's one of the premises behind the 14th Amendment, is that it allows that hard manual labor in a slavery type situation for violating the laws, the criminal laws, you know, such as fraud on the books for paying people like this, along with all the fraud on the books for the overtime that these people will take underhandedly until somebody actually has the oversight to hold them accountable and actually hold them accountable.
After our investigation questioning why Bailey was allowed to continue working, Chief Kirkpatrick says she's making an immediate change in the department. Following conversations with attorneys and civil service, Kirkpatrick now says she's confident she can satisfy due process in egregious cases like Bailey's, with an initial hearing within days of the violation, allowing her to suspend officers without pay swiftly, instead of waiting for an entire formal investigation to unfold.
I think.
So here we go. Again, the premise that this lady is doing a good job. But again, it's under her watch that all of this happens. And she did nothing about it with the excuse of saying she didn't have the right due process to do it. Excuse me? 18 U.S.C. 4, misprision of felony. If you witness a crime, you're supposed to report it, lady. You're supposed to report it, not say you have no remedy, not say that your suspension rules don't, or your civil rules don't, will allow for a suspension, but then not follow it. And then follow up with a cosigner, civil service department, that ain't going to co-sign on it because they weren't involved. How does that happen? Kind of a little bit of a virtue signal. They're saying they're taking care of the problem. The problem's still sitting as the chief of police. One of them anyway. 18 U.S.C. 4, misprision of felony. Failure to report results in up to a 3-year sentence for each one.
We have some real improvements that have occurred in the NOPD. We have a chief that really understands how to be a police chief and is doing an amazing job.
Again, virtue signaling that she's doing an amazing job. No, she's just being given kudos for changing the way she's doing things. Otherwise, they're going to have to hold her accountable and she will lose her job. She should be held accountable already. That's part of the crime. The corruption is allowed to continue to sit in the seat. Despite the overwhelming evidence across the board. Suspension issues for an officer using meth. Convictions of 20 members of the New Orleans Police Department or grand jury indictments for 20 members of the New Orleans Police Department. All the officers that were pointed out as scamming on the overtime 3 times their normal pay. The fuck? You can't be this oblivious.
Under really trying conditions.
Rob Krieger, Fox 8, local first.
Kirkpatrick went on to say she believes Louisiana should adopt rules that would allow an officer who engages in misconduct.
Understand the language there. Let me repeat it.
Local first.
Kirkpatrick went on to say she believes Louisiana should adopt rules that would allow an officer who. Kirkpatrick went on to say she believes Louisiana should adopt rules that would. Kirkpatrick went on to say she believes Louisiana should adopt rules that would allow an officer.
So are they laws that are affected by an enactment, or are they rules that are adopted? Understand the language. Again, this is all just fucking propaganda to make you believe that something is actually being done. Ain't nothing going to be done till you hold yourself accountable to comprehend what's being done. Exactly, Barney. Paper tigers, so terrible and vicious on paper, but can't stand up to the truth.
Officer who engages in misconduct to be stripped of their peace officer standards and training.
Who engages in misconduct, smoking meth on video, giving evidence, in uniform, can't just simply be a policy violation. Because under their laws, that's a criminal act. They hold other people criminally to. Where are the standards? Why are those laws for thee or for me and not for thee? Huh?
Certification that would prevent an officer who resigns under investigation from moving to another department.
Again, an officer who resigns under investigation. And what happens when they resign under investigation? The investigation stops and nobody's held accountable. They just get to go along their own merry way and keep on having their little meth problem and being a blight on society or whatever. Fucking pathetic. Let's look at the next one. This is a guy from a little over 3 years ago. And it's very rare that we see this kind of accountability. And we'll hear more about that later in the stream. I believe it's in this video itself. The reality of people that are successful in cases that are brought against these kind of situations.
The News4JAX I team has been following this story for almost 3 years. Braxton Smith received a $45,000 settlement from the city of Jacksonville earlier this year.
Smith had alleged he was illegally detained and searched. And Tarek Miner is here. And Tarek, he's been asking questions about this arrest since shortly after it happened, right?
Yeah, it's a story the News4JAX I team started following, in fact, in November of 2022, when Braxton Smith contacted me about how he thought he was being treated by the Jacksonville Police Department. Now, the entire incident was captured on body camera. One of the officers involved in the incident was eventually reprimanded. Smith says he's speaking out today because he wants to help empower his community.
Did you ask them why are they pulling you over?
Numerous times.
What they say?
They never really gave an explanation.
That was Braxton Smith talking to News.
And they were, one of them was reprimanded. Violated a man's rights, which is a criminal act. Nobody around him reported it as a felony. And one officer got a reprimand.
For Jackson 2023, nearly a year after being pulled over by a JSO task force after leaving a convenience store on Gulf Air Boulevard. The Navy veteran was eventually dragged out of his car and put on the ground and handcuffed. The task force searched his vehicle while he was detained for more than 30 minutes.
Get in the car, shut him out.
At the time, Smith said police questioned him about possessing drugs and about a gun he had in his truck, a handgun.
That's assault, folks. Laying hands on somebody when you don't have authority, that's assault. Putting him on the ground and handcuffing him, that's battery.
That the Navy veteran legally owned.
I've bought guns my whole life. I'm a veteran. I'm served 10 years in the military.
So why wouldn't you be able to get C.O.W.A.R.D.S is what I'm trying to get to?
But why is that an issue if I'm within my legal limits?
Smith filed.
If I'm within my legal limits, then why are you trying to tell me that I should have done something else? Yeah, that's beyond reasonable. I'm already within my legal limits, right? And when they handcuff him, and well, actually, when they laid him on the ground and put him in handcuffs and that whole process here, and now you see him in a police cruiser, that's kidnapping. Okay? Deuteronomy 24:7. Anyone caught stealing one of the children of the brethren of Israel and making merchandise out of him shall be put to death. Ye shall put evil away from amongst you. That's your accountability. They're using a commercial process. Civil, federal rules of civil procedure. There is one form of action. Civil. It's a civil action. It means it's commercial. It's the only way this government can operate. And it has a civilian authority. That's you. You're the ones that need to step up and hold yourself accountable.
A formal complaint against JSO officer Justin Peppers, and after an internal investigation, police found Peppers demonstrated conduct unbecoming of a police officer, receiving a level 1 written reprimand.
Level 1 written reprimand. The guy violated another man by putting his hands on him physically, which he had no authority to do so, and literally kidnapped him. I mean, either way you look at it, they were on the clock. So even if the man didn't get a citation and actually get taken to jail, which I believe he actually was. That's why they placed him in the cruiser. So either way, it was a civil action because the officers were on paid duty. Called emoluments.
Earlier this year, Smith was awarded $45,000 in a settlement. He has this message for the community.
Speaking up matters. It really does matter. As bad as it may hurt. Like I said, we have a voice, and there's guidelines that they. Speaking up matters. It really does matter. As bad as it may hurt. Like I said, we have a voice, and there's guidelines that everyone has to abide by. Speaking up matters. It really does matter. As bad as it may hurt. Like I said, we have a voice, and there's guidelines that everyone has to abide by. And for any wrongdoing, you know, especially from the police department, they should be held accountable.
Smith says since the body camera video was made public, he's received a lot of feedback from others about their experience with what they perceive as police misconduct. He says it's motivated him to speak out and stresses that citizens should never resist police. He says he wants to empower others about challenging authority in the right way.
It's very important because, like,
yes, challenging authority in the right way. And that's by learning how to use the right words. I can't impress this upon you any more than this. That is imperative, particularly in consideration to the First Amendment. See, I've said many times, I have singularly a great right in my freedom of expression, but potentially and exponentially even a greater right is the right of the people listening to know. And when somebody tries to cut off that line of communication in any sense, that is a violation of it. The only way that they can do that is if you're making threats. So as long as the words you're using are true and correct and hitting the point and not being argumentative and ad hominem character attacks, that's the best way to express yourself. I don't always agree that you should just bow down to the policy enforcers. And there are certain times that you certainly don't. This comes with the preparedness of knowledge. These people do not know the law. They're enforcing their egos of a groupthink safe space as white knight virtue signalers. Every last one of them. My very strong opinion only, of course.
You say a lot of misconduct complaints go unsustained. So, like I said, we just have to keep pushing that forward. Anytime that you feel that your civil rights is being violated, you should report it, you should gather evidence, and you should seek support.
Smith says,
and this is where we're going to hear about those reports and how many are successful. And they're going to give you 3 years, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And it's astounding how many of these complaints have gone in, and yet there's only 6 out of 3 years that have been granted, sustained.
JSO officers used unnecessary force during his arrest, an allegation that wasn't sustained in an investigation. Digging deeper into the data, News4Jax found, according to JSO's website in 2024, JSO conducted 135 investigations into allegations of unnecessary force. Only 2 of those cases were sustained.
2 of those cases were sustained. Excuse me, I said 6. I meant 3. 3 cases in 3 years. And we'll count up the total number of cases. And we'll figure out a percentage.
In 2023, JSO conducted 164 investigations of unnecessary force. 1 case was classified as sustained. And in 2022, 125 investigations of allegations of unnecessary force were investigated. 0 of those were classified as sustained.
So we had 130, how many? 135 plus 164 plus 125 equals 424. And there were 3. That's less than 1%. Less than 1%, yep. Interesting, huh, folks?
Those were classified as sustained.
And that's the reason I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I know a lot of people feel powerless, you know. So, like I say, just me battling through it myself, just as far as the interview process, the legal process, because just like I know there's people that feel powerless. So, but no, it's definitely a process, and there's action that can be taken.
So JSO declined to issue a formal statement about the unnecessary force statistics on the website, but noted that 74% of the complaints over the 3 years we looked at were quickly dismissed after body-worn camera footage or other video recordings clearly showed officers were within policy.
Clearly,
New tonight.
Clearly showed officers within policy.
The News4Jax team has been following.
Clearly showed officers within policy. So did they adopt rules and then convert things to policy And like I said, they're not enforcing law. They would have to know the law in order to enforce the law. And here we see them enforcing, once again, not civil rules, but policy. Okay? Let's look at another one. This is a honor your oath. There's a guy out there who goes by honor your oath. And you see him holding the veteran sign. Peace to the veterans and stuff. Well, he's in the same area with James Madison Audits. So we're going to listen to a short real quick from these guys. And this is your policy enforcers.
Yeah, for some strange reason, Daytona Beach Shores were parked right over here. They were parked here, and they left this homeless guy out on the side of the street here. So we're going to get him a ride home. What is going on with your wrist?
Let me show you my wrist.
Holy crap, dude.
Look at that crap. That shit hurts.
I know.
This one here.
Wow.
Oh yeah, they were transporting me to jail. That's what they were saying they were doing. And they made a right turn and came down this road here. What is it?
Peninsula and Speedway.
And he pulled up in here and he's like, we just got word from the higher ups that we need to release you on your own recognizance.
Yeah.
Transporting me to jail. That's what they were saying they were doing. And they made a right turn and came down this road here. What is it?
Peninsula and Speedway.
And he pulled up in here and he's like, we just got word from the higher ups that we need to release you on your own recognizance. Transporting me to jail. That's what they were saying they were doing. And they made a right turn and came down this road here. What is it?
Peninsula and Speedway.
And he pulled up in here and he's like, we just got word from the higher ups that we need to release you on your own recognizance.
Yeah.
So he said, where would you like for me to take you? I said, right here is fine.
Yeah,
get me out of these cuffs, the better, because these are killing me.
Gotcha. All right, let's get you back home. Yeah, she's calling. We're going to get him back home. Daytona Beach Shores, for some reason, dumped him off on the side of the road here.
So go check him out. Honor Your Oath and James Madison Audits. Honor Your Oath and James Madison Audits. Now we're going to look at City of Tulsa. This is why it's important to speak out against these criminals. They're tearing apart families and sending people to prison for decades. And no one's being held accountable. No people are being held accountable. Some sort of fictional entity is held accountable, and they win lawsuits through that. But the people themselves that are fomenting this shit and allowing it to continue decades in are the true criminals. It's not corruption, it's criminal. So let's take a look at this.
The city of Tulsa has agreed to pay a whopping $26 million to a man who was wrongfully convicted of rape and spent decades in prison because of it. News Channel 8's Bert Mumlo reports on the shocking circumstances that led to this massive settlement. Bert.
A devastating portrait of injustice. That's how Henry Jamerson's lawyer describes his case. The story of a man who was told time and again that the crucial evidence in his case, which could prove his innocence, no longer existed, only to find out it actually did.
I don't be playing around with freedom.
When we interviewed him back in April,
we've heard about that before recently too. There was evidence that was supposed to be in with prosecutorial discovery, and they said there was no such evidence.
April, Henry Jamerson had just filed an 89-page lawsuit in federal court after spending decades behind bars following a wrongful conviction in the 1991 rape of a 16-year-old.
All of it is shocking.
Attorney Dan Smolin is Jamerson's lawyer, who meticulously laid out the tangled web of jaw-dropping allegations of wrongdoing by the police department, the DA's office, and the city, even the current police chief.
I think he does.
Even the current police chief, and this is why I say it's systemic and it's across the board, all up and down the chains of authority. So when you're going to that voter booth and you're voting in these people, there's an issue. You're the one that should be holding yourself accountable. I've never registered to vote, let alone voted. I understood the electoral college and how it works, and I understand that there is no man that's my authority. So I've done a lot of things in my life to work smart, not hard. It cost me a lot of fucking effort. So I ended up having to do hard work. Funny how that works out. Irony again.
Knew, he says, that authorities had the DNA evidence from Jamerson's case, even though time and again, when Jamerson asked to have it tested, he was told it no longer existed. Quote,
he was told it no longer existed. Listen to this quote.
We decline your request to inspect the Tulsa Police Department laboratory and/or property room to search for a piece of evidence that we are certain we have destroyed.
For a piece of evidence that we are certain we have destroyed. So rather than look for it to make sure, they just ascertain that they are certain it has been destroyed, therefore not fulfilling their duty of doing the proper search for the evidence. Amazing shit. Amazing shit.
They had maintained that it had been looked for. They had looked at everywhere possible, that it couldn't be found, that they were certain that it didn't exist anymore.
The DA's office, he says, jumped on the bandwagon. There is no reason to doubt the city of Tulsa's diligence in failing to locate petitioner's evidence.
That's statements that
and that's part of the prosecutor's pre-investigation, is that he is the one that's ultimately responsible to make sure that all the evidence he brings forth in that trial, in that case, whatever it may be, is true and correct. And so when he goes on a presumption himself that somebody else has done a diligent search, when they in fact have not, then that's the problem. Again, everybody co-signing for everybody else in this groupthink safe space because they're buddy-buddy. It's a private club and you ain't in it. They're not going to work for you. In any case, never.
they made to a court in the Tulsa County Courthouse during evidentiary hearings.
And city legal, no better, he says.
It's been destroyed. The city on letterhead wrote from the legal department, we're not going to go look for something that we're certain has been destroyed.
But
when it's a requirement, again, of prosecuting attorneys pre-investigation to make sure that the evidence presented is true and correct. And that means you can't just dismiss shit that would be exculpatory. And that's what they're trying to do. Exculpatory meaning for the benefit of the one being prosecuted. If it's beneficial to them and they don't bring it out and they show it's been covered up, that's criminal. That's not corruption, folks. It's fucking criminal.
And behold, after a 7-year legal
and every last one of these people involved in this should be held to a fucking life sentence.
Battle, Smolin got a court order to search the property room himself.
In my very strong opinion, this is not legal advice. It's not even medical advice or mental advice. It's just my opinion. Like it or lump it.
And within just a few hours,
it was surreal. It was surreal that we had found it. It was surreal that we'd been lied to for so long about the existence of it. It was shocking that Henry had been asking for this and denied the opportunity over decades to have had an opportunity to get out of prison for a crime that he had nothing to do with.
That's frustrating, man. You know, especially you go to prison for a crime you didn't do, spend all that time, 24 years in prison.
Jamerson,
24 years, almost 2.5 full decades. That's a whole generation. That's a whole family. So is that man going to be able to bring up a family? That's the destruction of an entire line of generations. Don't make it a small issue, folks. This is not corruption. This is criminal.
Could have gotten out sooner, but stood his ground, maintaining his innocence.
They want me to take parole, and I keep turning it down because you take parole, you can't file no lawsuit on them. That means that you take a road that's saying that you're guilty of that crime. So I didn't mess with it.
And now that...
See, that's kind of like extortion, folks. You either accept the parole and its guilty conviction as the ultimatum, or you stay in prison.
Patience has paid off to the tune of $26 million. And one outstanding question: will there be any actual fallout within the agencies that led to this calamity?
I think there needs to be fallout from it.
Outstanding question: will there be any actual fallout within the agencies that led to this calamity? Outstanding question: will there be any actual fallout within the agencies that led to this calamity?
I think there needs to be fallout from it. The entire detectives division at the Tulsa Police Department needs radical change.
Attorney Smolin released his...
Absolutely. Again, I think the whole system, systemically, needs a radical change. But again, this is where the accountability falls on the good man. You know, you people saying you're a good man. You've just been doing what you're supposed to, going along to get along, comfort and convenience of cognitive dissonance. Henry Sue, to walk alone is better than to follow a crowd going in the wrong direction. Keep following them off that bridge. You'll find out what's at the bottom.
Statement today saying, in part, Mayor Nichols and the city council saved Tulsa taxpayers millions. If a jury had heard how Mr. Jamerson's conviction was based on coerced testimony and how the government withheld or concealed the pertinent DNA evidence for years, the verdict would have likely been astronomical.
Saved them millions. No. It cost them $26.5 million when it shouldn't have cost them anything. The man shouldn't have violated they shouldn't have violated the man's rights to begin with by withholding exculpatory evidence back when he had the trial and then continue to cover it up for 24 fucking years. So I got to take a break. Please enjoy the next one. As I get it ready here. Oops. And I'll be right back, folks.
I am accounted for, my name's been read, written in the ledger where the lamb was led. Did not the body, did not the blood, pay every debt in the flood of love? So tell me now, what's left to owe? When mercy calls, I can't say no. Are we too old on anything? Just grace erase what the law might bring. If love's the all, then love fulfills all that binds all their wills. Silver spend, the temples fall, but the heart still whispers through it all. Render to God what is divine, and what remains is only mine. So tell me now, what's mine to keep when every truth cuts dark and deep? Are we all knowing anything? Does the blood absolve the suffering? If love's the law, then I am free. But is that law the law of me? still let 'em go. The measure's met, the balance true, no doubt remains. Save love for you. Are we to owe no man anything? Did not the Christ pay everything? The law fulfilled, the veil torn through. Now the law of me is loving you.
Okay, and we're back. And the next one I have is a from Tulsa County DA. And this is about a motion to remove a Tulsa County DA from the April Wilkins murder trial. Oops. Did it again. Share this tab instead. Here we go here.
New developments in the story of April Wilkins, the woman serving life in prison for the murder of her ex-fiance, Terry Carlton. She applied to be resentenced under the Oklahoma Survivors Act, a law that allows survivors of domestic violence or abuse to seek reduced sentences if they can prove the abuse played a role in their case. But her request was denied, even though the judge and district attorney have publicly stated that they believe she is a victim of abuse.
Publicly stated that they believe she is a victim of abuse. So right off the bat, I must ask then, what would be a bias? Because if it's publicly stated by public servants who oversaw the case to believe that she is a victim of abuse, then what is the bias? There has to be bias to decide against that. In case you don't comprehend this, there must be a bias that would then cause them to deny her request that it had something to do with her case. Prove why it wasn't done because of those stemming circumstances of being a victim of domestic abuse. You would have to show a bias that that was not the reason it was done in order to deny that she pleads for a lighter sentence because of it. This is insane, folks.
Now, newly discovered evidence has prompted a request to remove the Tulsa County District Attorney's Office from her case. News Channel 8's Christina Santiago is here with details.
April Wilkins' attorneys filed new documents, including text messages between members of Governor Stitt's staff and the Tulsa County District Attorney. Texts that they say show the DA's office is too biased to continue handling the case. In these messages, which we obtained from the Tulsa County Clerk's office, according to an open records request, there is a text thread between key members of Governor Stitt's staff and the DA. One message from Tulsa District Attorney Steve Kunzweiler reads, "Sorry about just now getting back with you. I was busy keeping April Wilkins in prison this week." Wilkins' team is asking a judge to either reduce her sentence.
I was busy keeping April Wilkins in prison this week. If that doesn't tell you something, I feel for you. That is deep-seated cognitive dissonance. That is bootlicking. That is backing the blue until it happens to you. That is refusal to take accountability for what's right before your eyes. Sorry about just now getting back with you. I was busy keeping April Wilkins in prison this week. Oklahoma Survivors Act. Well, I'd like to see the evidence that says that she wasn't in the mindset of being a victim of domestic abuse when she supposedly allegedly killed her husband. Because if she did, and she did it under those circumstances, then she would be applicable for a lighter sentence under the Oklahoma Survivors Act. So what is your bias that says she's not? I was busy keeping April Wilkins in prison this week.
Wilkins in prison this week. Wilkins' team is asking a judge to either reduce her sentence or set her free under the Oklahoma Survivors Act. She served 27 years for killing Terry Carlton. Her attorneys argue it was a matter of self-defense after years of abuse and stalking. In September, a judge denied her resentencing request, but her attorneys are now asking the court to reconsider. The Tulsa County DA's office is objecting to that second hearing. Supporters of Wilkins say the DA's involvement is preventing her from getting a fair chance at justice.
The behavior that District Attorney Stephen Kutzweiler has displayed is towards his own constituents, mind you, has been aggressive and at times just truly unprofessional. He should simply step back off of this case and allow somebody who can be professional and impartial to step forward.
And that's an important aspect of their duties in this public service. Both judges, attorneys, clerks, they're supposed to hold a professional etiquette as a matter of ethics, and not be disrespectful or intolerant towards the people. In other words, they're not supposed to be doing ad hominem character attacks or implying that they're busy keeping people in prison. All kinds of things.
Spoke with TU law professor Stephen Galoob for a legal perspective.
The comments that were made by the DA's office since then would create an apparent conflict of interest, maybe would constitute a violation of the prosecutorial duty to do justice. These things are doing, even if you have a situation where you have identified problematic ethical behavior by a prosecutor.
We reached out to the Attorney General's office, and they said that they do not have a comment on the case specifically, but clarified that under Title 19, Section 215.9 of the Oklahoma statutes, if a court disqualifies a district attorney, the Attorney General must appoint a DA or assistant DA from another district to represent the state. We spoke with District Attorney C.O.W.A.R.D.S back in October about his approach to this case.
The job requires me to dispassionately apply the law to the facts. I can't become emotionally connected on the case so much so that I'm ignoring my responsibility. My job is not to zealously advocate on behalf of a client like a defense attorney. My job is to make sure that justice prevails.
When asked for an updated statement, the district attorney's office said Judge Gooten rendered the ruling and that Kutzweiler responded to community inquiries through text messages, which were released under an open records request. We also reached out to Governor Stitt's office for a comment, but have not received a response just yet. As the case continues, we'll keep you updated on the latest developments at K2L.com. Reporting in studio, News Channel 8.
So they requested a motion to dismiss the DA, and consequently denied with prejudice. Judge stops April Wilkins' request to qualify or disqualify DA. So again, you have to understand that if the judge is the one stopping it, then he's the one that has to have evidence of some kind of bias, whether it be himself or from the DA. The bias has to still exist. And now he's extending it to himself by stopping the request to disqualify the DA for that very bias, the pre-investigation that they're required to do. That absolutely has failed, because if there is a record of domestic abuse, and that is what she's using to qualify for the lighter sentence, and they are denying it, then they have to have a legitimate legal reason other than just their emotions, like the attorney just said. So let's take a look.
2 News Oklahoma starts right now.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight at 6. I'm Naomi Kitt.
And I'm TJ Ecker. 26 years behind bars and counting. Family, friends, and attorneys of April Wilkins have hoped the Oklahoma Survivors Act could be her ticket out of prison for killing her abusive ex-fiance.
This week, though, their latest roadblock. 2 News Oklahoma Steph Mansion walks us through the court documents that just made her hope of resentencing even more difficult.
Denied with prejudice. Those 3 words just ended April Wilkins' fight for freedom, at least in Tulsa County courts.
Finding of fact and conclusion of law. How can you have a finding of fact and conclusion of law in such a short time? I believe it was denied the same day. So again, going on presumptions and having no actual finding of facts in law. Clearly stating that she was a victim of abuse and made it under that claim, and yet showing no reason why they're still holding her for the lengthier term sentence and not allowing her for that lighter sentence, despite that.
She's been in prison since 1999 for killing her abusive ex-fiance. Over the last year, Wilkins and her lawyers have been trying to get her life sentence reduced under the Oklahoma Survivors Act, but they've...
And I am in no way supporting the Survivors Act either, folks. I'm just making sure that we understand that if there is such an act for such situations and they're refusing to allow it, then they have to show their bias. That's their rules, right? I still don't comprehend why you should be going around killing people. There are other means and methods of acquiring assistance before the abuse goes on for years. Okay? So this woman here herself does have a culpability in it. She should have left a long time before that, didn't, allowed the abuse to continue, took it to its extreme and committed a heinous act herself. Okay? Get away from those situations before they happen. Control your mentality before you go to prison.
I walked into prison, still a boy of 120 pounds. When I walked out, I was healthy and mindful. Know thyself. Heal thyself. See, it's not just the physical, but the mental health too. You can get help before prison. Call 988 for help today and be blessed.
Faced setbacks at every turn. Most recently, on Tuesday, Judge David Gooten closed the case in Tulsa County, denying Wilkins' request with prejudice for a sentence modification and a motion to reconsider. According to court documents 2 News obtained, Judge Gooten said it was never about if Wilkins was abused, though he said Wilkins' legal team failed to prove the abuse.
It was never about whether if she was abused. So let's listen to what they say. If the defendant failed to prove what? If the abuse had a connection. So if that's the only thing they're basing it on, then just because she failed to show a connection, I would rebut that in showing the connection was that she was abused. That is the connection. And you're failing to acknowledge that.
The abuse was what caused her to commit the murder. Judge Gooten.
Right. If the abuse is what caused her to commit the murder. So again, like I said, she holds a certain culpability because she's one of the ones that allowed the abuse to continue.
Also questioned the legitimacy of their main witness, calling Angela Beatty biased and unqualified. Beatty testified to appearing on a podcast 2 years prior that advocated for Wilkins' case. At her initial Survivors Act hearing in early September, documents say Wilkins' team called a last-minute expert witness to the stand. Judge Gooten wrote in his findings that this was the first the court and the state were hearing of this witness. Documents say Wilkins' team disclosed this witness had been working on the case for nearly 5 months. Because it was denied with prejudice, they can't ask the judge to reconsider, but they can take the case to the Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. And that
Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals. See, they're making this woman go through a series of a process hindering her actual release. And this is absolutely criminal. There is a venue, and it's all money hungry. The longer that woman stays in prison, the more they get paid. It all goes into those state coffers.
That's exactly what Wilkins attorney Colleen McCarty says she plans to do. In Tulsa, Steph Mansion, 2 News.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what they plan to do all along, is keep pilfering the money. Because most people don't understand the real concept of money, but I can try to explain it the best I can, and people still don't catch on. See, the real accountability comes down to yourself. That's all I'm saying. If you really think you have the power to hold these people accountable, then you have to prove it. You can't keep counting on somebody else to do it for you. That's the problem. People keep giving up their actual responsibility of certain things in life and believe they have no accountability for it because somebody else is the one that taught their child that in the public education system, because mom and dad didn't teach them. Taking on responsibility is your right. Comfort, convenience, and paying tribute to a false patriarch, saying you have certain rights, are the ones that ascertain whether they're doing wrong or not. And then you stand back and cry. Start learning how to stand up and take accountability for yourself so you can pass that on to your children. It's the most important lesson in life. I hope you guys understand that. And with that, we're out the door. One last time. Enjoy it.
Hold up, grab my soda, cause I told you I'm colder than hell. I ain't buying what you sell, it don't ring my bell. Unless it's got the smell, you know, like grape paint. We ain't talking vapes or the color of drapes, or a gorilla in a cape. It's the good shit, just one hit. You so lit, you fall into a bit, non-bit. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie, obliteration of the carnation with gross castration, skewed citations by your intimations. Get real, young man, there's only one stand. You can't stand a suntan. How you gonna live on the land? Obliteration of the carnation with gross castration in skewed citations by your intimations. I'm a truth in rotation. You're a cheap imitation. Dark said hums, 808s make the ground shake. Cold as the grave, every word's a land quake. You're a flicker in a cipher, I'm the flame that won't fade. Step into the night where the shadows are made. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie. I'm gonna click another hit of this good shit, and I'm already it, so take over, it's been non-bit.
Thank you for joining us at Personality Inventory Mockumentary Production.